In this video, we're going to take a look at the chart of Bitcoin, and I'm going to ask you a very important question. And I can guarantee you guys, many folks out there are giving the wrong answer to this important question. And I want to make sure we clear things up in this video. Let me explain. Now, here's the chart of Bitcoin, and you can see that, as you will see from this chart, it's becoming obvious that this key level that Bitcoin keeps coming down to, you'll see that every time Bitcoin has dropped, every time Bitcoin has sold off and dropped, it keeps coming down to this important support level, and that's the 6,000 level. So if I just draw a line at that level, it is without a doubt clear that that 6,000 to 5,700 level, well, let's just say 6,000 for the point of simplicity and clarity, that 6,000 support level is becoming very important for Bitcoin. That's a key level of support for Bitcoin, and you can see so far it's maintained itself successfully above that level. Now, I should say that in technical analysis, in chart analysis, there is a theory that the more often price comes down to a key level of support, so the more often price tests a key level, which in this case is the 6,000 level, the theory says the more likely it is that eventually it's going to break it. So let me just repeat that. One of the major theories in technical analysis is that the more often price comes down to test the key level, the more often price touches a key level, the more likely it is that eventually it's going to break it. So is there a likelihood that Bitcoin could eventually break through this support level and drop below it? Yes, there is. How likely is it? I would say about 55 to 60%. But there's no guarantee. There is a probability, but there is no certainty, there's no guarantee. And also there's something else we need to remember, that even if Bitcoin were to drop below the 6,000 level, we don't really know when that's going to happen. We have no way of knowing with certainty, or indeed any degree of high probability, when that could happen. It might happen this year, or it might happen potentially next year in 2019. One thing we do know with some historical accuracy is that the period from October to December is usually a strong period for Bitcoin. I mentioned this in a previous video, you might remember. Again, the period from October, the middle of October, I should say, towards the December period is usually a very powerful and a strong period for Bitcoin. So we're coming very close now. We're not too far away. We're only about a month away from this strong period for Bitcoin. So maybe it won't happen this year. So maybe Bitcoin won't fall below 6,000 this year, okay? It might, but again, the seasonality seems to favor a strong period for Bitcoin between the October to December period. The bottom line is this though. Here's the question I want to ask you. Let's say Bitcoin were to drop. Let's say it did drop below the 6,000 support level, okay? So let me just do this for you one more time. So if I was to draw those lines, that particular support level for you here. So there's our 6,000 support level right there. And let's say Bitcoin did eventually break the support level, okay? And let's say maybe this year or maybe next year, let's say the beginning of 2019, let's say Bitcoin did finally drop below the support level and it went significantly lower. In fact, I do think that if Bitcoin drops below that support level, if it breaks it, the levels we're going to are going to be significantly lower. But here's the question I want to ask you. Would that be a disaster? Because many folks out there are saying that if Bitcoin were to drop below the 6,000 level, and if it were to drop, let's say to 3,000 or 2,000, that would be a disaster for Bitcoin. But I want to ask you, do you agree with that? And is that even correct? In my personal point of view, that is not correct. I actually think that if Bitcoin, if it were to drop down, let's say to 3,000 or 2,000, I think it would be a great thing for Bitcoin. Let me explain. So it might not be clear immediately why, but let me just explain that point. Let's say you were to buy Bitcoin at near current levels. Let's say you were to buy Bitcoin at 6,000, okay? Now, let's just keep it simple. So let's say you bought Bitcoin at 6,000. Let me ask you this question. How much would Bitcoin have to go up by for you to double your money? Okay, let me just rephrase that. If you were to buy Bitcoin at 6,000, let's say, how much would Bitcoin have to go up by to make 100% return on your money? The answer is very simple. It'd have to go up to 12,000. In other words, Bitcoin would have to go up to 12,000. In other words, a $6,000 move just for you to make 100% return. In other words, to double your money. Now, imagine, for example, Bitcoin now fell down to 2,000. Okay, as an example, let's say Bitcoin were to drop to 2,000. And let's say we bought Bitcoin at 2,000. Now let me ask the same question. If you bought Bitcoin at 2,000, how much would Bitcoin have to move by for you to double your money? The answer is very simple, 2,000. So if Bitcoin were to go from 2,000 to 4,000, you'd have doubled your money. You'd have made 100% return. In fact, if you were to buy Bitcoin at 2,000, by the time Bitcoin has moved back up to its near current levels, near 6,000, you'd have tripled your money. Okay? So one thing we can begin to see is something many folks out there do not begin to understand, which is that at lower levels, okay, so at lower levels, in other words, at the 2,000 to 3,000 levels, the multiples are much better. The risk return is much better. Again, this is something very important to remember. As I just explained, a person who buys at lower levels at 2,000, they'd have a much better multiple, because by the time Bitcoin has gone back up to 4,000 to 6,000, they've already made 100 to 300% return. So again, multiples are better, the risk return is better, and the odds of a potential bottom forming near those current levels are also better, in my point of view. Okay, because I think that we might see more demand, more potential buying happening at those lower levels than at current levels. Now, it is true that people who bought Bitcoin perhaps at the very highs of near 17 to 15 or 19,000, for them, it would not be a great thing if Bitcoin were to drop back down to, let's say, 2,000 or 3,000. I understand that. But then again, if you're a long-term holder, if you're a hodler, for example, if you're holding for the very long term, a period of maybe 5 to 10 years, then maybe it wouldn't matter so much. And in fact, maybe you might welcome the idea. And I think one thing we have to understand and actually appreciate is this, that we should welcome the idea. We should embrace the idea of Bitcoin dropping down to lower levels, because I think the odds of a potential bottom forming are much better at lower levels. Again, the multiples, the risk return is so much better at lower levels than at near current levels. Now, the main thing to remember is that for the moment, Bitcoin is respecting this support level. So at present, we're seeing Bitcoin maintaining itself above this 6,000 level of support. And again, there is absolutely no guarantee that Bitcoin is going to drop and crumble below the support level. It could happen, but again, there's absolutely no guarantee it's going to do that. So for the moment, we just have to appreciate that this is going to be a key level of support for Bitcoin, near 6,000. And if Bitcoin were to drop below that level, let's say this year or next year, that actually is something should be welcomed, it should be embraced, and not something we should be afraid of. Alright guys, hope this video has helped, and if it has, please give it a thumbs up, and also please subscribe for future videos. Thanks a lot.